So, I've made this video for you on IELTS Task 1 writing styles, and we're just going to focus on the bar charts in this video. There's a lot of information and it can be quite complex and quite dense, so my advice to you is get a cup of tea and watch the video in small doses and make notes on some of the important points that we come across. Okay? So, first of all, let's have a look at the writing assessment criteria for the task 1. So I think this is fairly clear, and this is what generally the IELTS examiner, this is what they're looking at when they mark your task 1, your task achievement. Okay, so the key features, the main points in the diagram, have you been able to successfully report those back? Coherence, how well it all fits together, your language, and how well it links your ideas. The grammar and the vocabulary. Okay, so if we can do well in these 4 areas, we can put together a very respectable task 1 writing. Okay, so we have 2 problems with the task. Students don't often understand what is demanded of them, and they don't have the language for describing the information, the data that's presented to them. So let's have a look at the introduction first. So we need to first analyze the information, and it can take five minutes or so to orientate yourself to the information that you see in the graph. The next thing we have to do, we need to use synonyms and grammar transformation to change the description of the graph. And we'll look on the next slide, we'll do this. And we also need to analyze the question to find out what type of information is required. Okay. So here we have an example of a writing task 1. We have the instructions that you would find on the IELTS exam. So it's a 20-minute task. I think you'll have longer on Thursday. And here we've got a simple description of the chart in front of us. So the bar chart below compares tourists of different nationalities to Corfu in 1995, 2000 and 2005. Okay, so the first thing that you should be doing, as a lot of information presented to you, should be looking at the axis. So here we've got percentage, we've got years, we've got our key here with the different nationalities, and we also have our title. Okay, and luckily here as well, it makes it easier for us to see what the values are. So you just take time to process this information, absorb it, and then the next step is to go to the description, and this will be the first sentence in your introduction. You need to transform what is said here. Okay, so that's your first sentence in your introduction to any task 1 writing, is to transform, to paraphrase the description of the chart. Okay, and here we've got an example. So the diagram compares the proportion of tourists from 3 nationalities to Corfu in 3 years, 1995, 2000 and 2005. Okay, so we do this rather than just copying. We do this to show that we understand the chart and we understand what's demanded by us in the question. Okay. Same when you do your writing tasks. You're expected to paraphrase the question in the introduction. So the writing task 1 is no different. A mistake that sometimes some of you make is that you, okay, we'll give that a tick, that some of you make is that you might try to find some strange synonyms that don't really gel well together, okay? And so this lacks a certain amount of cohesion, and your lexical resource it's a bit strange if you do this. Okay, this word is fine. Histogram. It's, you know, this is a histogram, but it's quite an unusual way to describe the bar chart. Okay, you're better off just, if you see bar chart here, to write diagram, and if you see diagram here, just to write bar chart. Juxtaposes, again, quite low frequency vocabulary that sounds quite strange. Globetrotters, tourists, okay, again, isn't really a good synonym. Okay, so be careful with just picking words off thesaurus or from Google that you think are synonyms. And we'll give that across. Okay, I don't want to see any of that. The next point is the time and tenses. So look at the information and check what period of time, if any, the data relates to. Okay, so have a look at that yourself. And use this to think about and decide on what tenses are likely to be needed. Okay. The second bit in your analysis, you need to look for the main trends and patterns. Okay, so the global pattern, the global trend. This is quite nice, yeah? The thing that we do the most, the pitfalls that most of us fall into when we write a task 1 is that we try to overcomplicate the information and we don't simplify the information and the data. So, you know, imagine that you're explaining the task 1 to somebody over the phone. You can't point to the pictures, you can only express in your words. You need to simplify it and use simple sentences. So, for example, 1 idea per sentence. Okay, keep it short, not too many figures. Okay. So the main trend, the main pattern, you can put in 1 or 2 points in the introduction. Let's have a look here. So time and tenses, I hope that you've guessed you need to use the simple past or past simple, because all of these years are prior to 2020. The main trend, what do you think is the main trend? Pause and have a look. Okay, so in my opinion, the main trend is 1995. There was a large difference between all of the values in this group in this year. Whereas in 2005, we've seen a more equal distribution between these 3 nationalities. And there's a certain progression there as well. So quite different here. Different, but not as much. And here they're more similar. Okay. What other patterns can you see? Again, just pause the video, have a look through, and looking nationality by nationality, are there any patterns that you can see? What's the pattern with the French? What's the pattern with the Russians? What's the pattern with the Japanese? Okay, so with the French, it's increased slightly. With the Russians, the percentage compared to 1995 has fallen slightly. Okay. 2000, sorry, to 1995. And with the Japanese, the percentage here in 1995 and the value here in 2005, this value has tripled. Yeah, we can see from 5% to nearly 15%, so it's nearly tripled. Okay, so on each task one, you'll also have underneath the instructions and the basic description of the graph, you'll have the rubric, okay, which you're presented with. And it's very important that you do what the rubric asks you to do. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features, and to make comparisons where relevant. Summarize, select, main features, make comparisons.